What's it like being with someone who's from a different generation? Age isn't anything but a number. Or is it? Relationships take work, and dating someone from another generation comes with its own set of complications. Tune in now to Maria Romano, and today she will share the 5 generations in the dating world you need to know.
Hi, everybody. Maria Romano here, founder of True Love Knots. How are we doing tonight? Did everybody have a great weekend? I hope so. Everybody on Facebook, everybody in the podcast that's going to listen later on in IG land. I hope all doing well and you had a great weekend. I did. I have to tell you, I married a lot of people. I didn't have a chance to have a lot of fun, but you know what? What I do is a lot of fun. So here we are, July 5th. As we all know, that is a hot dating season. But tonight I wanted to talk to you about there are multiple generations today in the dating realm. That's right. Did you know right now there are 7 living generations, which is unheard of? We are living longer. Why? Because we're healthier, we're happier, and we're doing the right things for our body. And medicine definitely has progressed. There's no question about that. So let's make sure that we're going live. Oh, I don't think I went live on IG, but that's okay. So could you imagine 5 generations now in the dating realm? That means there's a lot of opportunity. So those 5 generations we're going to start with the oldest, which is the silent generation. And then we have the baby boomers generation, which is my generation. And we have, after that, we have the Gen X generation. Under them, we have the millennials. Under them, we have the Gen Z generation. It's called the Gen Z. Now, the other 2 generations that might not necessarily be in the dating world is also the greatest generation, which is anybody born from like 1900s to 1925, 26, which, I'm not saying they can't date, but they definitely are getting on in years. And then you have the Alpha generation, which still remains to be seen because that'll be up to 2025, and then they will go into another generation. So I think it's just interesting. Number one is that there are 5 generations in not the workplace, but they are in the workplace, but also in the dating world right now. And what's interesting is looking at these different generations, which I find to be very interesting. So for example, you have the silent generation, which is anybody that's 75 and above in age. And that generation, I'm not saying that they might be familiar with technology, but they were not raised with technology. Therefore, dating, they're used to the very traditional ways of dating and communicating. So somebody that is in that generation, I'm not saying that they aren't savvy with technology, but very, very few of them, because they were not born with technology. I mean, when they were born, you have to remember it was post World War II, right? Well, yeah. And they really worked very, very hard, very diligent, had their nose to the ground. So when somebody is dating from that particular generation, they're very serious. They're not going to waste any time. And also probably because they're getting older. Now, when you move on to the baby boomer generation, which is the generation I am in, this generation is also known as the most influential, powerful generation. Maybe it's because we're supposed to have more money and we're a product of the silent, well, actually not the silent, but the great generation. So we also work quite hard as well. But I'll tell you who is the hardest working and the smartest as we go down the line. It's not us. We're the most powerful and influential. And the people that start to date in our generation, most people are, again, getting familiar with the technology. Because I can even remember when I grew up, we had TV, but it was black and white TV. We listened to the radio. There was only a few channels, ABC, NBC, CBS, and that's it. And it went off at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So technology was introduced. We were sort of spoon fed very diligently. So therefore, in the dating world, again, we're teeter-tottering. This generation, we teeter-totter on the technology. We're trying to be up there, technically savvy, but some of us still have a hard time. And most baby boomers, like myself, go back to the actual dating rituals of courting, okay? Romance and being chivalry. And also, we'd rather have a phone call. Not that we don't enjoy texting, but we rather have a phone call. So that's the boomers generation. Now, underneath the boomers is the millennials. Now, not the millennials, take that back. Generation X. So Generation X is really a product, first of all, their parents more than likely were the silent generation. And some of them could have been the greatest generation. However, again, millennials, they were a lot more exposed to technology, and they're more open to dating online and the non-traditional forms of dating, which is very interesting. And they'll do both. They'll pick up the phone, they'll talk some text as well. So that is a sandwich generation, because that's when technology really started moving forward, and especially dating and dating apps. So during there was more than likely, they're more open to dating apps and more open to meeting people online. Not to say that any one of these generations cannot meet someone in person, but now when you move down to millennials, okay, so the millennials are known as the smartest and most hardworking generation. Why? Because they saw what happened to their parents. We had a decline in the economy, and there were boomers and silent generation that might have lost their money. So they're the most educated, believe it or not. Millennials are the most educated. They are very, very much in tune to how to save the planet. They're all about what a company does in the community. And as well as when they're dating, yes, they're savvy, they're technically savvy, a lot more savvy than I am. And they do not mind meeting people on apps, but they have a different type of mindset. They're more of a hookup culture, but they hook up and then they decide they're going to continue a relationship. And then from there, they move in together, they have children, and then they decide to get married. So I defined the millennials as more of a hookup culture, but that's acceptable to them. Whereas when you go into the Generation X and baby boomers, silent and the greatest, that's like, okay, that's sort of still taboo. So that generation is definitely very open to dating, open to texting, and sometimes they rather text. So now let's move down to the line to the last generation, which is Generation Z. Now this generation is probably very similar to the greatest generation. This generation is definitely savvy, definitely technically savvy, does not mind meeting people online, but they're really all about giving back to the community. They're all about organic. And you'll find that some of them might want to meet people online, but some of them also might want to meet someone the organic way. And that, even though they're technically ahead of us, I mean, let's face it, these kids were born with a tablet in their hand, right? And they like texting, but they're also, some of them are going back to what's called the old-fashioned values. So I think it's pretty interesting how these generations all touch each other. So if you're somebody that's a millennial, for example, and you're dating somebody that could be a baby boomer, and it happens, or a Gen Xer, you have to take into consideration they're a different generation. So sort of be sensitive to that, and vice versa as well, because there's a lot of men and women that are dating out of their age range. Some of them are dating 15, 20 years younger, 15, 20 years older. So you want to learn a little bit about the generation, the person was born into, especially when you're going out in the dating world, if you want to succeed. So I hope this gave you some great information when you think about it. Five generations, that's 100-year span touching the dating world, which means There's a boatload of people out there of all ages and all types. So I just want to also tell everybody, don't forget every Monday night, I come to you live, and then you can also re-listen to this broadcast. It'll be put out on my podcast episode. And if you have any comments, if you had anything interesting about dating somebody that was out of your age range, a different generation, and now this sort of sinks in and the light bulb went on, just send me a note. I'd love to hear about it. Maybe you'll allow me to share a story with one of my next episodes. In the meantime, remember to continue to stay healthy, stay safe, and always, as I say, spread love. Have a great evening. Good night.